At 0020 hours on September 7, 1870, off Cape Finisterre in the Bay of Biscay, HMS Captain began her death roll. Captain Hugh Burgoyne stood on the bridge of Britain's most revolutionary warship, watching his barometer plunge. Wind speed, 35 knots and rising. Sea state, moderate but building. The ship's heel angle, 14 degrees to starboard. Within 18 minutes, 472 men would be dead. The captain was not supposed to sink. She was the future of naval warfare. Launched just 17 months earlier at Laird Brothers shipyard in Birkenhead, she embodied a radical vision. Heavy turret guns mounted on a low-freeboard hull. Traditional warships rode high in the water. The captain sat low, her main deck barely 12 feet above the waterline. The theory was elegant. Lower hull profile meant smaller target. Turret-mounted guns could fire at extreme angles, without the hull blocking their arc. Revolutionary designer Captain Cowper Coles had spent 8 years fighting the Admiralty to build his vision. He was aboard tonight, in the captain's quarters, asleep. The storm hit without warning. One moment, moderate winds. The next, a sudden squall screaming out of the southwest at 45 knots. The captain carried full sail. Burgoyne had ordered maximum canvas to keep pace with the fleet during exercises. 12,000 square feet of sailcloth caught the wind. The ship heeled hard to starboard, 18 degrees, 21 degrees, 25 degrees. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Joseph Sartorius felt the deck tilting beneath his feet. The 2-cylinder horizontal trunk engines, generating 5,470 indicated horsepower, were running at quarter power. Not enough to counter the wind's leverage on those towering masts. The captain displaced 6,950 tons. Her center of gravity sat dangerously high. Those 2 massive gun turrets, each weighing 183 tons, perched on the low deck like boulders balanced on a plank. 28 degrees of heel. Water began pouring through the ventilation cowls. The captain's freeboard advantage had become her executioner. Designed to sit low for better firing angles, her main deck was now submerging. Seawater flooded through every opening. The lower gun deck hatchways, the companionways, the coal bunkers. 700 tons of water rushing into the hull in under 3 minutes. Burgoyne ordered the watch to furl sails. Too late. The wind had the ship now 32 degrees. Below decks, 472 men slept in hammocks, unaware. The sudden lurch woke some. Most never knew what was happening. Midshipman Claude Buckle, 17 years old, scrambled from his berth as cold Atlantic water surged through the gun deck. He grabbed a life vest. There were 185 life vests aboard. Regulation required 500. The Admiralty had calculated risk based on traditional warship stability. The captain was not a traditional warship. On the bridge, Burgoyne knew. The ship was going over. He could feel it in the deck's angle, the sluggish response to the helm, the weight of water flooding the compartments below. He ordered boats away. 4 cutters, capacity, 140 men. For a crew of 490, 35 degrees. In his cabin, Captain Cowper Coles woke to chaos. Water rushing, men shouting, the floor tilting impossibly steep. He was 54 years old, a decorated veteran who had designed turret ships for coastal defense during the Crimean War. The Admiralty had resisted his vision for a seagoing turret ship. They'd built HMS Monarch instead. Higher freeboard, more stable, safer. Coles had insisted his design was superior. He'd lobbied Parliament, written letters to the Times, demanded vindication through construction. Now his ship was killing him. 38 degrees. The royal masts touched the water. Sailors scrambled up the tilting deck toward the port side, now becoming the high side. Some made it. Most didn't. The ship rolled like a harpooned whale. Chief Engineer Sartorius stayed at his post in the engine room. Standard procedure. Engineers stayed with their engines. The boilers were still lit, steam pressure building. If seawater hit those boilers at temperature, they would explode. 42 degrees. Midshipman Buckle fought through rushing water toward the main hatch. Around him, men clawed toward light, toward air, toward the rapidly disappearing sky. The ship's roll accelerated. Physics took over. The metacentric height, The measure of a ship's stability had been calculated at 1.5 feet, dangerously low. HMS Monarch's metacentric height, 3.9 feet. The captain's designers had sacrificed stability for firepower and profile. That sacrifice was now being paid in full. 48 degrees. The ship paused. For perhaps 5 seconds, the captain hung suspended at nearly 50 degrees of heel. Some men thought she might recover. Ships had survived worse. Then the main deck went under completely. Water poured through every opening with the sound of collapsing buildings. The turrets, those magnificent 183-ton steel fortresses with their 12-inch guns, pulled the ship over like anchors. 54 degrees, 60 degrees, 70 degrees. The masts were horizontal now, parallel to the ocean surface. Men clung to rigging, to rails, to anything solid. The 4 cutters had gotten away, half swamped, carrying perhaps 80 men. On the capsizing deck, Captain Burgoyne grabbed a piece of floating debris. He was an experienced sailor, 3rd-generation Royal Navy. His father had been an admiral. His grandfather had fought at Trafalgar. None of that mattered now. 80 degrees. The ship rolled completely over, keel pointing at the night sky. The hull visible for perhaps 30 seconds. Copper bottom gleaming in the darkness. Barnacles and sea growth exposed to air for the first and last time. Then the captain began her final dive. The trapped air escaped in massive bubbles. The weight of water and iron and men pulled her down. At 00:38 hours, 18 minutes after the first lurch, HMS Captain vanished beneath the Bay of Biscay. Depth at that position, 180 fathoms, 1,080 feet of cold Atlantic darkness. The ship plunged downward, still intact, carrying most of her crew trapped inside. Chief Engineer Sartorius never left the engine room. Captain Coles never left his cabin. 414 men never left the ship at all. On the surface, the 4 cutters drifted in the squall. 87 survivors total. They watched the spot where their ship had been, watched it for hours, through the storm, into the dawn. 18 survivors would die of exposure before rescue. Final count, 472 dead. 18 survivors. The scandal was immediate. The captain had been controversial from conception. The Admiralty's chief constructor, Edward Reed, had opposed the design. Too low, too unstable, too dangerous. He'd calculated that any heel beyond 20 degrees would flood the deck. He'd been overruled. Cowper Coles had friends in Parliament. He had public support. He had theoretical calculations showing his design would work. Reed resigned in protest before the ship was completed. The inquiry began within days. Why had Britain's most modern warship capsized in a moderate storm? The Mediterranean fleet had weathered the same squall. HMS Monarch, the Admiralty's competing turret design, had sailed through without incident. Only the captain had died. The evidence was damning. The ship's freeboard, 12 feet at midships, only 6 feet 8 inches at the bow. Any heel beyond 15 degrees would submerge the deck edge. The turret weight, 366 tons total, positioned high on a low hull. The sail area, excessive for such top-heavy displacement. The metacentric height, calculated at 1.5 feet, later found to be under 1 foot when fully provisioned. Margin of safety, essentially zero. But the most damning evidence came from the captain's own trials. In March 1870, 6 months before she sank, the ship had been tested in calm water. She'd heeled to 21 degrees under moderate sail. Officers had reported water entering the lee side openings. The report was filed. No modifications were made. The ship was declared operational. Captain Burgoyne had expressed private concerns. Letters to his wife mentioned the captain's peculiar behavior in a seaway. He'd noted her tendency to heel sharply. He'd questioned the sail plan, but he was a professional officer. He sailed the ship he was given. Cowper Coles never lived to face the inquiry. His body was never recovered. Neither were 388 others. The remaining 84 bodies washed ashore along the Spanish coast over the following weeks. They were buried in small coastal cemeteries, far from home. The Royal Navy absorbed the disaster with characteristic stoicism. The inquiry concluded that the captain had been fundamentally unseaworthy. Low freeboard combined with top-heavy turret weight had created inevitable instability. The report vindicated Edward Reed completely. It condemned the political pressure that had overruled engineering judgment. It recommended that future warship designs prioritize stability over theoretical advantages. The captain's loss changed naval architecture forever. Low freeboard turret ships disappeared from British planning. The Admiralty adopted the Monarch design philosophy: higher freeboard, better stability, sacrificed gun angles for survivability. Other navies took note. The Americans, the French, the Germans all abandoned ultra-low-profile designs. Some theories look brilliant on paper. Some theories kill 472 men in 18 minutes. HMS Monarch, the ship Coles had opposed, served for 25 years. She was never in danger of capsizing. Her guns fired at slightly reduced angles. Her crew went home to their families. The captain rests today at 180 fathoms off Cape Finisterre. The exact position was never definitively marked. Spanish fishermen occasionally snag nets on underwater obstructions in that area. They avoid those spots now. The wreck has never been located by modern surveys. The Bay of Biscay keeps its secrets. In Portsmouth, a memorial stone lists the names, 472 of them. Ages range from 15 to 54, ordinary seamen, able seamen, marines, engineers, officers. One ship's boy, one revolutionary designer, all victims of the same flaw, the belief that innovation alone equals progress. The captain was revolutionary, she was innovative, she was the future of naval warfare. She was also a death trap, and every engineer who examined her calculations knew it. But political will and public enthusiasm had momentum. Caution was dismissed as timidity. Calculations were called pessimistic. Experience was labeled old-fashioned. At 00:20 hours on September 7, 1870, reality delivered its verdict. The wind cared nothing for revolutionary design. The ocean cared nothing for political pressure. Physics cared nothing for good intentions. And 472 men paid the price for a theory that looked perfect until it killed them. The storm passed by 0400 hours. The Bay of Biscay returned to moderate seas. The Mediterranean fleet continued its exercises. One ship was simply missing. The future of naval warfare had sunk in 18 minutes, taking its designer, its captain, and 470 others into the cold darkness where theories are tested against truth, and truth always wins.